Mark Halprin, great political journalist. Go to walkingduck.com/Mark, walkingduck.com/Mark for the greatest political content literally in the country. Mark, thanks for being with us. What the hell is going on with Biden?
Greg, thank you for your kind words. It's a little weird to be in Milwaukee on the day Donald Trump is going to make history, third time nominated, with a speech that his campaign promises to be a blockbuster, and yet you're rightly, focused on Joe Biden. It's a better story, and in some ways the more important story. I think you're seeing now a lot of leaks coming out, and I say leaks in air quotes. I don't know if you saw my fingers go up, but this is an attempt now to force him out. So you're seeing them putting out, well, Barack Obama is now concerned, and Pelosi and Schumer are telling him he can't win. They're trying to force his hand. But two things to keep in mind about this, and most people I know think he's going to get out, but there's still some people who think he won't. And I'm not sure, because the clock's ticking, and it's not just a matter of Joe Biden saying, you know what, I'm not going to run. There's a lot of subsidiary decisions that are in some ways more important, or at least as important. Does Harris run? Does she run with Biden's endorsement? Does she run where they try to say no one else can run and it's just hers and a coronation? Who's her running mate going to be? There's so many questions that I think I know Joe Biden is not going to be uninterested in. And so Nancy Pelosi, who's really the leader of the effort to get him through some sort of combination of carrots and sticks, she's thinking about the day after. The day after, the minute after he gets out, if he does, what do they do about Harris? What do they do about all these other questions? So number one, you got to think, is Biden going to be involved in these decisions? And how long is it going to take him to make those? He's a horrible decision maker. And it's possible that he'll say, yeah, I'll get out, but now let's have a 19-day discussion about these other issues. And then number two, I think everybody assumes if Biden gets out, it's Harris, because the party can't, say to a black woman, vice president, no, you're not our nominee. I'm not sure Harris will want it. Think about it from her point of view. She knows she's a bad manager. She knows she's deeply unpopular. She knows if she runs and loses 30, 40 states to Trump, which is possible, and they lose the House, lose the Senate and don't take the House, she'll take a lot of the blame for that. So don't assume for sure, I think, that she will want it. And of course, if they both step aside, she might be president, first woman president. Biden both steps aside from the nomination of the presidency. But if they both step aside, then what? Then who do the elites in the party, the smoke-filled rumors, who do they want at that point?
All right, man, this is so wild. Now, the Trump thing is obviously still big. I mean, my God, survived the assassination attempt, and I've been looking at it, but I want to come back. Yeah, let's stay on this for a second. You said Nancy Pelosi, all these people have gone to him, but what happens next? Don't they know what's I think Nancy Pelosi would not go to President Biden, if she did not know what was going to happen next. So they have a plan, don't they?
Well, I don't know that they do. I think they're working on it. They certainly have something in mind. And Nancy Pelosi is masterful, and part of her mastery is playing her cards close to her vest. My gut is, from knowing how she views Kamala Harris, and from knowing the reality that Kamala Harris would almost certainly be worse for the House Democrats, like on Long Island, than Biden would. So my guess is she has a plan. My guess is that her plan involves not having Biden or Harris at the top of the ticket. That's my sense. But what her actual plan is beyond that, and how she plans to convince Biden and Harris of this, I do not know.
Well, and let's ponder a couple of things, because politics is sometimes about carrots and sticks and trade-offs and favors and fear of certain things, fear of certain penalties. Do this or else that could happen. I actually believe that Joe Biden is severely compromised. There's plenty of circumstantial evidence. Okay. Do you think that they would even convey to him, like, if you don't leave, you don't put it past these people to get a little bit hardball, like, Joe, you got to do this, because if you don't, X, Y, or Z could happen.
I think there's one piece of hardball, and this is reporting, not speculation. The hardball is the donors. The donors have been calling Pelosi, begging her, the big donors, what you and I euphemistically and with affection call the fat cats. They've been going to her to say, you got to get Biden out of the race. Some saying we got to go with Harris. Some say we got to go to Harris because of the black vote. Some say we got to go to Harris because she can actually win. Some say you got to get Harris out too. So they're split, but they want Biden out. So he's already losing a lot of money, and you're not going to get him out reading in poll numbers. Partly because he's in denial and he can cherry pick, find polls that look less dire. But also he knows Michael Dukakis was ahead by 17 points against George H.W. Bush in the late summer, and Bush won. The only way to get him out, because he's old school, is to say, you'll have no money. You will have no money. You will be so badly outspent that means you can't win. I think that's already gotten his attention. I know it has. I know he's focused on that from conversations that people have had with him. And I think Pelosi can say to both of them, you want to run for president in 2024? No one's going to give you a dime, and I'm going to make sure of it. I think that's her hardball card that she can play.
Wow. Let's go to Trump for a moment. It's kind of wild when you think about it. He's had the most remarkable week, maybe, of his career. I mean, well, yeah, it's been very interesting. And
attempted assassination. He's having a hit show on NBC.
Well, yes, but he hasn't even uttered a word all week long, and he's
the Marcel Marceau of American politics.
It is extraordinary. Do you see there's obviously this. Would this be happening right now, this conversation with Joe Biden, if Donald Trump hadn't been shot on Saturday and all of the goodwill that comes with that? Is that what brought the renewed urgency to this Biden situation?
No. First of all, I want to make sure that the WABC team is going to put my Marcel Marceau quote out on social media.
All right, hold on a second. Now, he was some mime or something like that who couldn't talk.
He was a mime. And the only time he ever uttered a word in public was when he was in Mel Brooks' silent movie, which had no dialogue in it except Marcel Marceau saying the word no, which in French is spelled N-O-N. Anyway.
Hey, if you're wondering, everybody,
a little bit of a diversion.
Our friend Mark Helprin went to Harvard, okay?
Yeah.
He's
nothing to do with Harvard.
But you're very cultured. You're very cultured and smart. We like that about you. But keep going.
Citing a Mel Brooks movie, I'm not sure it counts as culture, but okay. Greg, I think the opposite is true, with all due respect to what you said, which is the assassination attempt halted for a little bit the conversation within the Democratic Party of Joe must go. It only picked up because the clock is ticking. They had to push back the virtual roll call for Biden's nomination a week, but the clock is still ticking quite quickly. So I think the assassination attempt gave Biden a little bit of a reprieve, but the reality is it's not just his poll numbers are bad. They do not think he has the mental capacity, or that the voters see him having the mental capacity. When 70% of your own voters say you're not qualified to be president, you're not going to win. Forget inflation, forget immigration, forget Israel. If 70% and forget all of Trump's problems, if 70% of your voters think you shouldn't be president, you're not going to win. And they look at that in their own data and their own focus groups. So it wasn't going to stop, but the clock was running down, and then he got a little bit of a several-day reprieve. But now Pelosi is back because she's determined. And Nancy Pelosi determined is like Greg Kelly with a taco if he hasn't eaten in 8 hours. It's just going to happen. He's going to eat the taco. She's going to do this. She never fails in stuff like this. She knows how to count votes. She understands Joe Biden. As I said, the question is the day after. What is her plan for the day after? The minute Biden says, I'm out, how does she avoid having Harris be the nominee? And I don't know what her plan is for that.
I'll have everything inside the taco. I don't eat the shell. I'm cutting carbs, but I'll totally eat the.
You know what? It's a salad. It's a salad bowl. I should have said salad.
25th Amendment, is that remotely
no.
at play?
No.
Okay. And the Trump team, they're on cloud nine right now. I mean, they're not making too many mistakes.
It's the best run convention I remember covering. It's very difficult to program in the room, for the audience in the room, and for TV. And of course, you need to program well for the audience in the room so the people on TV see enthusiasm and hear the cheers and see the smiley, happy faces. So they've done a brilliant job of programming. And my Democratic sources say the same thing. It's just a professional, analytical thing. It's not a partisan thing. I don't think it's bravado. They'll run against Trump. They'll run against Biden. They'll run against Harris. They'll run against Shapiro and Whitman. They feel very confident about where they are. I'd say they're obviously, I know, the unknown. I mean, if they suddenly found themselves running against Shapiro or Gavin Newsom, they'd have to rethink things. But they're very comfortable running against Biden or Harris.
Mark, final thing. You've been around presidential politics for a long time, and your overall take on the security situation, the lapses, Saturday and beyond. I mean, just what do you think's going on here?
I'll say three things about it. One is, unlike you, I say respectfully, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There's way too many things that are messed up about this. Way too many. The lapses, how this guy exploited an inexplicable number of lapses. It just doesn't make sense. There's nothing about his background, what little we know, that suggests he could somehow magically have exploited the lapses, number one. Number two, the fact that the head of the Secret Service and Secretary of Homeland Security haven't been fired is insane, or quit in disgrace. It's insane. They have one mission. It's a massive failure. No matter what the explanation, it's a massive failure. And lastly, the country needs to come together around this. President Trump is going to make an effort at that tonight. I think the Democrats they're having an emotional breakdown because they had to go several days where their animating feeling and their rhetoric wasn't about Donald Trump being Hitler. But I don't know how they're going to sustain, particularly if no matter how the Biden situation resolves. I think it's going to be very difficult to live in a country where half the people look at the assassination attempt with gratitude for the hand of God saving Donald Trump, and the other half, somewhere in their hearts, feel like we have to go back to attacking him. Yeah, we feel bad that someone tried to kill him, but we have to go back to attacking him. I think that we're on a very, very perilous collision course here of emotion and political rhetoric and blame that I'm truly concerned about.
But he might be able to do a lot to fix that tonight, and I have a feeling he will.
Greg, the people who live on the Upper West Side with me, there's nothing he can do tonight. They're not available to him.
Well, I wish they weren't so close-minded. And the last thing, Mark, and it's really just an observation, but you're so smart and you have such wisdom and experience, and I'd like to ask you to really keep an open mind, and everybody in the journalist world, because look, we didn't have crackpots yelling and screaming that Donald Trump was Hitler or a threat to democracy, the Constitution. We had the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States. We had some of the most important and prominent people in America saying this man must be stopped at all costs. And you look at that oath of office that these people take, you will support and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, the idea that he is viewed as a domestic enemy is not crazy because they say it all the time. And if you take that oath, and I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, but and how close the Secret Service director is to the Cheneys, I think she needs to be questioned at the very, very least. And I'm glad you said everything's on the table because, or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Everything has to be on the table, because not just because we live in a time when if there's no explanation or if there's suspicions, it's going to catch wildfire on social media, et cetera, but because the known facts of this case are so bizarre. And the person who was almost killed is someone who inspires in half the country derangement. So we have to have better answers. Now, I think people say they have to be instantaneous. There's some sensitivities here, but as I said, those people should have quit or been fired the first day because their cavalier attitude. When the Secretary of Homeland Security in his first press conference about it comes out and says, "Heck of a job, Secret Service. They're doing a great job. This is unfortunate." Why not just admit it was a conspiracy? Because that's the way it's going to be read. It's just so insane. It's so insane.
Last thing, if Vance can go from calling Trump Hitler and 8 years later his vice presidential running mate, maybe there's hope for some of those people on the Upper West Side. You never know. The East Side, they're all for him, and amazing things are happening. Mark,
you know what, Greg? How about Sunday? You and I get a bunch of MAGA hats and head up to Zabar's and see what we can do.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, we'll have to bring weapons as well.
Break it in slowly.
Thank you very much. Go to walking.
All right, Greg, good to talk to you.
Take care, pal. Take care.